Okay, so for this video we're going to be focusing on the pen tool color wheel project. So you're going to be using the color wheel and you're going to be focusing on the pen tool. You're going to be using all the different tools that we've learned prior, but primarily we're going to be focusing on the pen tool. So before you even begin this project, you do have to choose your image. You have to know if it's more of a landscape or a portrait setup. And you should make sure you do check in with me about your photo so that I can just double check to make sure it's a good photo and it should work really well for the project. Because you have to be kind of creative of how you're using the color wheel in your project. It shouldn't be super easy to see where it'd be, but you should kind of think about how the colors will lay out and how you're going to be using the pen tool to do that. Okay, so I've chosen my image. It's going to be a bird. You're going to go to File, Open. Actually, I'm sorry. You're going to go to File, Create. New. Okay, so I know it's going to be 8 by 10 are the dimensions, and then I know it's a landscape, so I'm going to hit Create. And then I'm going to go to File, Open, and I'm going to open up my picture. It's going to give you a new document. All you have to do is select your image, so I just selected it. You're going to hit Control X to cut it. You're going to go to your document, select, hit Control V to place it, and then you can get rid of this one. You should do that because if you drag things in, there's a good chance it might not be there tomorrow or the next day. It's not the best way to link files, so just try to remember that. With your image selected and your selection tool on, you're going to hold Shift, and you're going to scale down your image so it fits on your illustration board better. You should be thinking about how it is laid out throughout the image to make sure that you are getting good composition, good negative shapes, good positive shapes, which I'll show you in a second what that means. So if we zoom in, there's some good negative shapes over here. There's some good space over here. It's not totally centered just because of the way the bird is laid out. It's good movement, and then I'm going to be using the wings to show my color wheel. Okay, so I'm going to lock this layer. I'm done with that layer, and I'm going to hit New. And this layer is going to be for our color wheel. Okay, so I'm going to label this color wheel. Okay, and then I have to find my color wheel. So in the Menard Computer Graphics Drive, Spring 2018, Unit 3, Color Wheel, you're going to open up the one that says Create Color Wheel. And all you're going to be doing in this document is selecting this image. So I'm going to select it, hit Control Copy, minimize it just in case I didn't do it. I'm going to select my layer 2, which is my color wheel layer, and just Control V. And this is what you're going to be using the eyedropper tool to grab your color. Okay, and you can also lock that layer as well. You're going to create a new layer, which is going to be used for the pen tool. And for my pen tool, I'm going to be using the wings as my where I'm going to be placing my color. And you're going to be using the pen tool to do that. So I'm going to select my pen tool, make sure there's a stroke line. I'm going to make it at least 1 point is probably good. And for now, I'm going to just leave it black, and then you should have no fill so that you can see what you're doing. Sound good? Okay. So I'm going to start right in here, and you can get creative with the way you lay it out. Remember, you can change your anchor points later if you're not happy with them, or you can Control Z a selection if you're not happy with the way it worked out. So I'm going to select my first anchor point. And just think of it, so it's actually even simpler than the exercise we did, because you're just making it, well, depending on your obviously your image, but I'm just making curves, so I just have to drag them out and bring it back, and I've made my first selection. So that's like my first wing. I'm going to take my eyedropper tool. I'm going to start with red. It doesn't really matter where you start. Just know that you have to go in order of the color wheel. So if I start with red, my next one has to be red orange, then orange yellow, and so on and so forth until I make a full circle. So just know that you do have to go in order. That's important. And I'm going to fill it with red. Okay, that's my first one. So I have my wings selected. And I can go back and change things and finesse things, and you're going to be making plenty more. I'll be making more as well. But you're going to select it, you're going to go to Properties, and you're going to lower the opacity just a little bit. It shouldn't be opaque. And you can play with that. I think you need to have at least some kind of transparency to it. It shouldn't be just solid 100%. Okay? And I'm going to make a new layer. You can label that layer red. And actually, you should. You should label all your layers with different colors. Keep them organized so that when I go through, I can grade them a little bit easier. So I'm going to go to my next one. I'm going to do the same thing. Make sure that stuff is changed in the corner. Make sure you're selected on the right layer. And I'm going to put it like that. And wings overlap, so I'm kind of going to play off that. Sorry, feathers overlap. So I've made my selection. I'm going to go to my eyedropper tool. I'm going to go to red-orange, and I'm going to fill it with the red-orange. And I'm going to lower my opacity. And then you can still kind of move things around. Until you are happy with your selection. And then I might have to go back to this one to try to cover that up, or I can make another red or red-orange image feather in between to kind of keep going with this look. And then I'm going to label it red, orange. Okay. Remember, primary comes first, secondary color comes second. And then I can lock that image. And I could unlock this one, kind of go back to anchor points. I can scale it, I can change it, I can adjust it until you're happy. And then you keep going with the color wheel until you fill it up. Now for mine, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to go with my orange, yellow, orange. I'm going to keep making feathers here, and here, and here. And also I'm going to do on the other side. So if you have an image that you can do both sides, that would be awesome, because you can really expand your image and your understanding of the color wheel. So for the sake of just the demo video, I would say this is a good time to pause the video and check back in with me. I'm going to keep going with my pen tool. You're more than welcome to follow along, but I would say that this is a good time to start on your own, and then come back to this video to further if you have any help, need any help with the pen tool and the color wheel. Okay? Sounds good? Alright. So I'm going to pause the video, and then you can kind of see how mine develops.